Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Exchange podcast. Today we're going to be speaking about consent and do young people know what consent is. And my guests today are Truth's Debate and Talks with Jade.
Hi.
So guys, young people and consent. Do we believe they understand what consent means?
I think given the recent social media storm going on, I think it was Ambush and Ray Black and what people were saying in the comments, I don't think people are fully aware. I think there's an understanding, but I don't think there's a full awareness of, okay, I may consent to having sex with you now, but I can withdraw that at any time. And when I withdraw that, you should respond to that. And I think some people believe that because I've been given consent once, that the once means indefinitely.
All the time. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that. So even around the behaviours, they may have flirted, it still doesn't give you the right to touch me a certain way without permission.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? I think it's a grey area, but I think people need to familiarise themselves with that grey area.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think some young people don't know what consent is. So I think it's not even like understanding it, they just don't know about it. And I think that they may have come into or born within an environment where to them it's like what they see in front of them is how they're supposed to behave.
Yeah.
So if they see that mum or dad, if sex has been exposed to them at a young age, to them it's like, well, that's the norm. Like, I'm meant to do that, or I'm meant to, proceed with that. Or if they've been unfortunately exposed to abuse or molest or anything like that, then it's like, this is what is supposed to happen. So to them it's the norm. So I think like speaking out, they might have not been told that, or saying that is an option, or you do have the right to say no. So I think it's not even understanding it, because I think there's elements of it. I think there is some that don't know about it, and then there's some that do know about it but don't understand how to do it. And I think with some young people, like I remember teaching a year 9 class, and to me that's still kind of young. It's 13, 14.
Yeah.
But to them, there were some of them that were sexually active, and when you're teaching them about the elements of sex and what you feel you can and you can't do, and if you're not comfortable with it, you can say no, and you can even if you're in the middle of it and you decide, actually I don't want to do this no more, it's fine to say that. It's like you'll have some that will say, but if I've started to do it, he's gonna think I'm a tease, or could think I'm frigid, or if the boy pulls out, they're gonna think, well, she's gonna tell her friends that I'm this and that, and etc. And it's all about like reputation.
Yeah.
But at that time you're thinking, well, they don't have the emotional intelligence to understand actually it's not about rep, it's about how you're going to feel afterwards. Because obviously sex is an adult activity. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like when you're giving yourself to someone, and there's some adults out there as well that give themselves to people, or they do the act and they still can be emotionally scarred from it afterwards, because they think that the sexual relationship was more than just a sexual act, if you know what I mean. So going back with young people, some of them don't understand, so they feel like they're in a situation where they had to do it in order to please the person, but also to keep a reputation. So that if they've said, oh well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that to you, and etc., and then they don't meet up to it, it's like, oh well, my rep's going to be put down if I don't go through with it, even though I know I don't want to go through with it. So I think that's a lot with young people. So it's that the ones that don't know about it, because they might have been exposed to other things, and then some that just don't understand it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of young people do not understand what consent is. We need to remember that these young people are young. You know, they're children, really. So the type of understanding that we as adults may expect them to have just might not be there.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, people's environments and what they've grown up around will determine their knowledge of consent. So if somebody was abused as a child, that is normal to them. So you often hear that an abused person abuses. Not in all cases, but in a few cases that can happen. So they don't feel that they need to seek any sort of consent, because when they were being abused, they didn't consent to it. They just felt that that is what happens. So that's why they translate that behaviour sometimes as they get older. But I feel that it's a societal responsibility to ensure that young people understand what consent means. And working with young people, like particularly young males, their reputation is everything.
Yeah.
And in some cases that's all they have. So if they've started to do something with a girl and then the girl turns around and says no, sometimes they can become aggressive. Sometimes they can feel embarrassed, ashamed, because in their mind, if that gets out, then their rep is gone, really. But again, it's understanding self and understanding people's boundaries. And although you may feel a certain way about something, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone else is going to feel that. So no means no, no matter how you want to put it or twist it up and add this story and take away that story. If somebody says no, it means no. I've heard young boys say, well, she says no, but she's laughing. She still said no. It doesn't matter. She could be laughing and grinning her teeth, being like, no, but no is no. Because if she then decides to go and tell her parents that she was raped, if she says no, you're going to be serving a long prison sentence. So you need to make it absolutely clear that you're both consenting to it.
It's also you can give consent body language as well. So it's not all
all verbal. Yeah.
And I think that's a lot what again young men get wrong. Well, she didn't say nothing, but if someone you're trying to hug or kiss is like
frowning away,
from
yeah,
you, like not trying to kiss you, not trying to actively get involved in what's going on, then you can tell she's not
on it.
Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I think again it's like it might be down to the person feeling away, feeling the fear. It might be a similar experience they've had, and they don't know how to voice it and say no, and they can still voice it and the person can still go ahead and do whatever they're doing, but she's giving you that body language to say I'm not interested, I'm not. And if you're still
trying to push that
into that, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is a massive problem, and grown men do it.
Yeah.
They will go up to grown men doing it to women, and it's like they're married to this woman or they're with that woman, but there might be days that woman actually doesn't want to have sex.
Yeah.
Which is normal. Like,
but they feel that it's because they're married, they owe them that, and they don't have to ask for it.
Yeah.
They can just take it. No.
Yeah.
Can't.
No.
Because funny enough, one of my male friends, it was like I can't remember what the quote picture said, but he actually sent it to me and was like, "What's your views on it?" And I said, it's a yes or no. Do you get what I mean? Yes, I consent. No, I don't. Like, and he was like, funny enough, I've never once asked someone if they're actually consenting to having sex, and he was like, is it something that I should be doing? Yeah. Because later down the line, this person could come out and say, "Oh, but I didn't give consent." I wasn't comfortable at the time or anything like that. And he was like, then how do you give consent? Well, you're having a conversation about it, no? If you're getting to know somebody, or if just before the act, or when you're about to do it, ask. I know body language gives a key, but if you want extra protection, ask.
Yeah.
But do people even think on that level though?
No,
I don't think people
because we
do.
haven't been taught to.
We don't think on that level. Even as an adult, I don't think I've even thought of it like that. Because if two people are in something and they're both on it, you don't think, oh, should I actually physically say the words, I do consent to this? And I'm sure the male probably doesn't think to say, are you okay to do this?
But you know what? From personal experience, I've had someone say to me, do you feel comfortable? Like, just like, not like just before it starts, but you know, we're in the moment. Do you feel comfortable? And yes or no. If it's a no, okay, maybe let me back off for it. Because you're saying you don't feel comfortable. I don't think we should do it.
Yeah.
Like, it might not be, oh, I give consent, but there are other words you can use.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I heard that. But I definitely feel that, consent is something that I think it needs to be explicit though. Because there's so many, like, people getting accused of things that they haven't done and that type of stuff, and it ruins their whole life. And there's a thin line, you know. I believe that no matter what happens, if a female or a male says no, no is no. I don't care if you're laughing, if you're joking, if your legs are wide open and you're still saying no. No, if the words come out no, then you just leave it at that, because it's not worth risking your whole entire career, your whole entire life, just because you thought she was joking or he was joking, or you know, there was just that, she was just that, whatever she was doing on the day.
Because I remember there was an article a couple of years ago where someone was wrongly accused of rape, but the newspaper had already posted his face.
Oh no!
Before it actually went to trial.
He's done.
Yep, everything he lost. He lost everything.
He's cancelled.
He lost everything.
Poor thing.
To then it gets to trial, because obviously, you know, trial doesn't happen a year. That they say, oh, we're going to trial this year. It's normally the next year.
Next year.
It gets to trial to then find out that she confesses she lied.
Wow.
But the newspaper's already put your picture
so
out
now
there.
everyone thinks that
you've lost your job.
Yeah.
You've lost your home. Your family don't respect you because, well, no
That's
one
what
wants to
they
be
think.
associated with a rapist. And then you've come to it. It comes down to it that it was a lie. Or, in some cases, a misunderstanding. You can't recover from that.
No.
That's a lifetime worth of damage that's done.
cancelled your whole life. Which is why it's imperative to make sure that you've heard what the answer is. You get what I mean? Like,
and if you're not sure, don't do it. Just don't.
Yeah.
It's true, you know.
If your gut instinct, or for those of you that don't understand what that is, if you get a feeling within yourself that says, not really sure, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
It's better to be safe than sorry at the end of the day.
Revisit it at a later date.
Yeah. 100% like. But I think as well that adults, I think adults definitely have the responsibility though. And I think it's down to them to educate themselves on consent too. Because I think, I don't want to just blame men, but I think, but I think men, they do kind of like do certain things that's a bit out of turn. Like, I remember one time I was just standing at a bus stop and a guy walked past me and squeezed my breast.
Oh wow.
Now I was in so much shock that I just froze. I didn't say nothing. I was just like, did that just happen? I was like, what the hell is that? And everyone at the bus stop is just like looking. So I didn't even do nothing. I didn't even think it was worth reporting it, because it was like, well, he's just a person that just walked past and touched my chest. he could be long gone. Nothing's gonna come of it anyway. I just convinced myself that it was nothing. Then when I told someone, they was like, no, that's assault. That's like sexual assault. And I was like, oh. So sometimes you don't even know that these things are happening to you, and it's like a negative thing. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for women as well, because you get people throwing like horrible things around, saying, well, you shouldn't dress like that, and you shouldn't wear a short skirt, and you shouldn't have your breast out. But it doesn't matter if that's what the woman wants to wear. That doesn't mean that you have the right to touch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A woman, because you feel that she's flaunting it.
Yeah.
But I think in regards, if we'd like to reverse the roles a bit, I think there are some women out there that believe, oh, well, he's a man, he's going to want it anyway. But men too have days or periods where they don't want to have sex. So you can't pounce on him. You can't try and stimulate him if he's already said no. Do you get what I mean? That's not fair.
Yeah.
It works both ways.
And as well, because they say that technically a man can't be raped by a woman, I think some women can take advantage of that.
Yep.
But they can be sexually assaulted though.
Yeah, they can be sexually
So
assaulted,
Sexually assaulted.
but they can't be raped because it's penetration, innit? And I feel like people do, like women do abuse men, and women do, was it assault, sexually assault men as well? But I think it's not really highlighted, like when women do it to men. And I think that's
Men don't
unfair
really
as well.
Men don't really go forward about being raped or sexually assaulted, whether it's from a woman or whether it's from a man.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a like that. I'm meant to be a protector. I'm meant to be the one that stands up for people than actually being the one that needs to be protected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you allow that to happen to you? You're a man. You should have defended yourself.
Yeah.
Things happen all the time.
Yeah.
Things happen all the time, and they are human as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, not all men are these predators, sex predators, and want to do it all the time. No.
There's, I think it was Sky News. I think it's still present now, as we're talking now. They did a feature on Snapchat. It's still there about the low convictions of sexual assault and rape.
Okay.
And this year it's been the lowest in the last 10 years. Now, there was a man that spoke out about his ordeal, and he was raped by 2 men. He was drugged in a club.
Wow.
His girlfriend actually left him at the club, and they got talking to these people before she left, and then obviously it was like, oh, I'm going home, bye.
Yeah.
They spiked his last drink, they took him somewhere and took it in turns to rape him for how many hours, whatever. So when he went to the police station straight after, they were like, are you sure of your sexuality?
What?
That's one of the questions they asked him before actually asking him if he's okay.
Yeah. That's
Are you
really
sure
bad.
about your sexuality? Are you sure you didn't consent for this? Are you sure?
But even if he was gay,
That's
gay person can still get raped.
Exactly.
So that is just ridiculous.
That question was pointless to ask, and it's degrading actually.
And that's one of the reasons why people don't go and report it, because they are literally tearing down your character to shreds before actually investigating the crime. They're breaking you down further. So, for example, that man said he was sitting in the clothes that he'd been raped in for X amount of hours. You told me not to shower, but you're not realizing the psychological damage.
Yeah.
I'm already now damaged because I can't do what I need to do. It's quick. It would have been more beneficial had you taken your swabs
And then got him to shower and clean himself up.
and let me speak about what has happened.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? But no, they wanted to tell, are you sure you're gay? Are you sure you're not gay? Are you gay? You're asking it in many different ways.
Yeah, and even
It's irrelevant anyway.
Yeah.
Whether it's gay or not, it makes no difference.
There was a
Rape
show,
is rape.
Yeah, there was a show on BBC Three called "I May Destroy You."
Okay.
I can't remember the actress's name, but it was literally her story of her being raped
Okay.
and not knowing who a rapist was because a drink got spiked, etc. But she kept seeing images of, cause she was raped in the toilet, images of the person's face, but it kept changing.
Okay.
But there was another encounter where she started seeing this Indian boy, and I think whilst they were having sex, he had taken off the condom and didn't realise she didn't realise he'd taken the condom off. Again, that's some form of sexual abuse because you haven't
consented to that
because you've consented to having protective sex. So she thought it was him that had raped her in the toilet because she couldn't see who it was that could have raped her, so she was like, yeah, you raped me, etc, etc. And then the images kept going back thinking, oh, it wasn't him, it was someone else. And it came back to this, like, again, this white guy who was in the club at the time, didn't know her, but it was friends of other people that he knew, kind of thing. Similar thing, the friend had left her, two friends had left her, whatever, and then she had got raped in the toilet, dragged to another bar, raped in the toilet, etc. But in between that as well, she had a gay friend, and the gay friend was on this, he was going through this phase where he was just sleeping around basically.
Okay.
But then there was this person he hooked up with, they had sex, but then afterwards he was like ready to go, but then he forced him to the bed and dry humped him, kind of thing.
Yeah. Where
his clothes was on, but he kind of pulled his trousers down a bit and dry humped him until he had penetrated. And then he didn't know, and I didn't know actually, so I learned something like that he didn't know that was an actual sexual assault as well.
Okay.
Because even though the penis didn't insert in him, it was still a sort of, but again, he was ashamed to go to the police station. He had gone at first, and then he was like, I forget it, because he's gay as well. He thought that was another gay black man thinking, oh, this is going to be a going against me kind of thing. What was the point? And because obviously with the friend who had got raped as well, like her story kind of, it was up and down, like, is this guy going to get convicted or not? So from that, he kind of looked upon, well, if her one, and she generally got raped, what chance do I have? So yeah, in that, you just don't know, like, being dry humped, all of these kind of things. Different things
constitutes to basically the same thing, like it's assault. Yeah. Sexual assault.
And because he had sex with him before, his semen,
it's like,
well, you had sex with him, so what's your problem? Kind of thing. So,
and I think it's the culture of understanding what consent is. Imagine you're going to the police to say, I'm a victim, for them to say, oh, but you consented. Did you consent? But it seems like you consented because of the way you're dressing, because of this, because of... That's not what consent means. So you've got a workforce that don't actually understand consent. How is society as a whole meant to understand it? Doesn't make sense.
Everyone needs to understand it as a whole. All the services, from top to bottom, schools, prisons, nurseries, everything, everyone, hospital, workplaces, because a lot of sexual assault happens in, like, your workplace.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And it's like, because you're friendly with them, in their mind, that's enough.
Think for me, can't go into too much because it might identify the person, but for me, in my workplace, we had someone that was a bit, I don't know what your intentions are, but from what the vibe I pick up, it don't seem good. So much so that I'm used to working late because I normally start later in the mornings, and the floor's empty, and the floor's normally got around 60 people, so the floor's empty now. Me, the male individual, and one of my other male colleagues are on the floor. My male colleague said that he saw the male individual look at me a certain way and took it upon himself to not leave. He sat back down. And he said, because we spoke about it the next day, he said the way he was hovering, I said, something doesn't seem right here. Whether or not it's not as bad as what I thought the intentions are, I couldn't let that even think of festering. So I took it upon myself to stay the extra 20 minutes until he left to make sure you were safe. Right. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, have you picked up vibes from him before? I said, yes. There are times in the workplace you've got someone that's undressing you with their eyes. You can see it.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel uncomfortable. But then you've got some managers that will take it very seriously, and some managers that will be like, oh, you know, it's not that big of a deal.
No, it is a big deal.
It is. And when you notice that management are not taking it seriously, it's up to the colleagues to band together, to stand up. And then there's some colleagues, oh, it's not happening to me, it's not my problem. Well, it could happen to your child.
Happen to you.
Yeah.
It could happen to your child.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if it's not happening to you. It could happen to your child. It could happen to anyone you know. And the same thing you will say, oh, someone didn't stand up for them. So why are you not standing up for someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that is an issue in society, is that if things are not affecting you directly, you don't care about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a sad place to be. If it's not happening to you, if it's not someone you know, then you're just putting your head down and getting on with your life, and you're not taking a second thought
Just ignore it.
about what other people are going through. And I think in order to combat certain situations like this, everyone has to stick together, and everyone has to support each other. Because how are you going to move forward if you just bury your head in the sand? And as well, they should have had some lone working policy anyway.
We do.
Which doesn't like allow like too many men in the room with like a late woman or something like that.
But then that's a discrimination within itself, because it should work vice versa. I think that there is a lone there is a lone working policy. Obviously, my manager was aware, and don't get me wrong, I spoke to him afterwards, and he dealt with it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more of the fact of just being aware of your surroundings. Just take that extra minute to just look around, notice other people's behaviours. Because I was unaware, because I was just doing my work.
Yeah.
But had my colleague not been there, what would have happened?
What could have happened?
Yeah.
So, from a parent's point of view and your personal journey, how are you teaching your children about consent? Like, what are the ways you've kind of taught them?
Well, I haven't spoken about consent in a sexual way. However, I've just spoken about consent generally. And like I said previously, like, no is no, and that's it. Even when you're like trying to do something to your sister or your brother, trying to dress them up and they don't want to be dressed up, you just leave them alone. You don't keep trying to, because they don't want you to do it. If you're trying to plait your sister's hair and your sister's like, no, leave me alone, I don't want you to plait, you just stop. You don't carry on. And I think just doing it on a general basis will then help them for when they're older, and then they get into that next stage of talking about sex and sexuality or whatever, consent and that type of stuff. It's just talking to them about it on a general basis. Talking to young people about it just generally, I think, is the basis of, you know, laying the foundation for when they're older and they've got to go through the next stage of their life.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of tell my friends, and I went out for dinner earlier this week with my friend and her small child, and she was saying, oh, you know, hug Jade, but the child didn't want to hug me, and I was like, stop. The child doesn't want to hug me, but she's happy to just say the word bye. You have to acknowledge that,
exactly,
and leave it as that. It's not offending me. If they don't want to hug me, they don't have to hug me. Oh, but you know, I don't want to be seen as being... No. My mum never forced me to hug anybody. My mum never forced me, you know, the polite pleasantries, you know, good afternoon, good morning, and all of that, but not to invade personal space. Now, the moment you force a child to hug you or to kiss you on the cheek or anything like that, you're already setting a bad tone.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It should be that they want to do it.
Feel comfortable.
And they're comfortable enough around you to do that.
Right. So she was like, in the end, the child hugged me. She didn't feel forced. She stopped and hugged and whatever. You can tell that she was happy to do so. But I was like, if she so chooses not to, but she says bye or she waves or anything like that, you have to accept it for what it is. You're laying the foundation, and obviously you can build upon it. And I always tell all my friends, because, you know, a lot of my friends are young parents. I said, no, if they don't want to touch anybody, don't make them touch anybody. If they're happy to wave goodbye,
really key,
they're happy to wave goodbye. They're still being polite. But if they don't want to touch nobody, don't make them do it.
Yeah.
Don't. It's like, it's a no-go zone for me.
Because also as well, like you were saying, it puts something in their minds so that they feel that if an adult tells them to do something like that, they have to do it. So again, if they were in a situation where they're being abused, they're going to think, well, because they're an adult and the adult's telling me to do it, I should just do it because, you know, my parents always said to me that you must hug your adult or kiss your adult or whatever.
Some families are aware that abuse do go on in the household and they don't say nothing because of obviously like shame, or if the person who's the abuser is contributing to something
In the
which
home.
which is potentially paying bills or whatever, it's like, you know, they are worthy or they are able to have whatever they want, kind of thing. So it's like, again, it goes back to knowing what consent is or actually don't know, kind of thing. And it's just like, if you have been exposed to being abused, then it's like, well, you don't know what it is because you've been told that you should hug your elders and you should do this and you should do that, and it's normal. And if they do occasionally want to touch you or stroke you or in particular areas, that should be okay as well, when it's clearly not. And I think it goes back to, you know, if someone is scarred from that, maybe 8 out of 10, they don't get that help, that mental help, or that kind of way of where they can help to be not cured, but knowing how to manage what's happened to them.
That's it.
Because you'll never cure a person of what kind of abuse they've been through. It's not curable, but it's understanding, okay, this has happened to me, I know why it's happened to me, and I know it's not my fault. And I think that's where people need to get to, and a lot of people don't ever get to that because they always are convinced it's their fault that they've been abused, or they deserve to be abused because they might have wore the wrong clothing, or they might have said the wrong thing, and that's why it's happened to them. So it's like learning what consent is, or not actually understanding it, to why it might build onto that. And I think it goes back down to, like, you know, the household, like, is that being taught? Is it being taught the difference that you can say something wrong? If you don't feel comfortable, you can say it, and exactly. But again, it goes back to, people might think, oh, but if we might find out we're being rude. It's not.
It's not being rude.
What's the comfortability of that person?
Exactly. And I think, we just need to get out of that whole thing about being rude. Yeah. It's not about being rude. Like, if you want to take it as being rude, then that's on you.
That's your problem.
But I don't feel like I should put myself in a position where I'm uncomfortable just because you might think I'm being rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if a child feels like, because I don't encourage my children to hug anyone really. But if they do it out of their own, that's up to them. But I would not say, go and hug this person or go and kiss that. No. If they feel that they want to do it on their own accord, then fine.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes I'm pulling them away from people because I'm like, you don't even know them, too tough, and you're just.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's different levels to it.
I think for me, also as adults, we are responsible for our own behaviours. So, okay, we may know that children don't understand consent. We should put that barrier there. So for my godchildren, I don't go up and hug them straight away. I'm like, oh, come give auntie a hug. And if they choose to hug me, I'm like, oh, you're not going to hug me? No. I'm like, all right then, fine.
Yeah.
You can give me a high five instead. But there's other ways, you get what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
Sometimes, I know we're adults and, you know, children should do as we say, but we've got to also teach them that they're going to be adults one day. So, for example, oh, can I get a hug? That's asking for permission for you, you know, can I hug you?
Yeah.
And whatever they respond is however you go about that. Do you get what I mean? So I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. Yeah. There's still that error that children have to be seen and not heard of.
And just because they're children doesn't mean that they need to be told to do certain things. That they have their own identity as well, you know, so we should respect them as much as we want them to respect us. It goes both ways. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're 5, I still need to respect a 5-year-old. Because they are still a human being with feelings. They might not be able to articulate their feelings, but I should still respect their wishes. And even as a parent, like, if my child doesn't want to hug me, then that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, you have to hug me because I'm your mum.
Yeah.
If you feel that you're not in the mood to hug me, then it is what it is.
Just leave them
Just
to
leave
it.
them to it, because you don't even know if they're just in the mood that day and they can't bother. Then there's other days when they're just all over you.
Yeah.
And then you just embrace that. But if they're not, then they're not. But consent is it's a topic that is not really spoke about that much, because like you said before, body language like speaks volumes.
Yeah.
But for me, I would rather, I don't know, I would only take body language if it's like, you know, when you see someone not wanting to do something, I think that registers more than when somebody wants to do something. Do you get it? Like, if someone's like this and they're like, no, leave me alone, that you can, it's so obvious that the person, you can see the fear in them. So why would you want to proceed if somebody's fearing their life potentially? You wouldn't even want to go near them. You would want to run out the door in case they say something.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to try more. Like, I don't get that. Why you would want to force yourself onto somebody who you can clearly, even if they don't verbally say no, but you can clearly see the fear in their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, the way that they're shying away from you, they don't want you to touch, and you're still trying. I think that's not cool.
Yeah.
And I think particularly for teenage boys, that needs to be drummed in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because when they're with their boys and they're talking all what they're talking in their groups, they're not seeing consent.
No.
And they don't understand it, I don't feel, and they're not really, they just think it's minor. I remember doing a session one time, and one of the young boys, he was about 16, but he was dating a 15-year-old.
Okay.
Legally, that 15-year-old she's not legal to have sex.
Yeah.
Because you have to be 16 to legally have sex.
There's a clause in that.
Yeah.
There's a clause.
Right, tell me the clause after, right? But I said to him that if you are going to have sexual intercourse with that, you better make sure that she consents to it. And she understands like what you're gonna do. I said, in my view, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. Both of you are way too young. But he insisted that it's his girlfriend and they've been together for like a year and it's fine. And I was like, listen, you need to make sure that you know what you're doing, because at any time, whether she's your girlfriend or not, if you have an argument, right, and she's pissed with you for whatever reason, she could go to the police and say that you raped her, and you are doing time.
But
because
you know
you're
what?
16 and you're of age, and she's not. She's underage. So I was just like, don't date no one younger than you until you're an adult, and then you can do that couple years difference type of thing.
Sometimes, this is going to sound really controversial, it's the parents that insist on reporting it to the police rather than the child. And the parents know that it was consensual, but they're doing it based out of principle. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now, if you're doing it based out of principle, I don't necessarily agree with that, because there are implications to that young person's future.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't be upset, and I'm not saying that you can't voice your opinions, especially as between the parents, because you're going to want to contact the other person's parents and stuff like that. But I feel like if it was discovered and the child did say that they had consensual sex, you shouldn't really report it as a sexual assault. And that's just my viewpoint. Once you understood and you're sure that it was consensual between the two young people, you shouldn't report it as assault. But I get it. You want to do it in principle, but that young person has that on their file for the rest of their life, and it won't ever be removed.
That should only happen if absolutely necessary. So,
but some parents just do it like, well, I don't care, I don't like him, and it shouldn't be like that. Because if the tables were turned, as the other parent would do, you're desperately trying to fight it, you're desperately trying to prove it. But in the eyes of the law, well, yeah, she is a minor. The clause says it's 12, 13 that she can give consent, but we don't know if she gave consent. All right, forget it. We're going to put it on there.
The thing is, do you think it happens when it's the other way around, if it's a female older than the boy?
I don't think it happens at all.
No.
Yeah, because I found out recently, the old school that I used to work in, young boy, year 11 now, year 11, got a 18-year-old pregnant.
So year 11
And
is what, 16?
15.
15, but this is before you went into year 11.
Oh, so 15, he got 18-year-old.
15, yeah. So
See.
with that, when I
What, did
got
anything
told
happen?
that- yeah, when I got told, I was like, so was she not done for rape? Because that would be rape, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And no, because the parents were okay with the relationship. It
Oh,
was
okay.
alright, and I thought, oh, okay.
So you allowed your 15-year-old to date an 18-year-old and that was cool?
And that was cool. And
Simply
now-
because he was a boy
young
and
dad.
she was a girl.
What's
But
that
if
mean?
it
Was the other way round, they
It'd
wouldn't
be a
have
problem.
allowed it.
And now he's a young dad.
Well,
Teenage.
no, it wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't have allowed it because the guy being younger, dating an older woman is always looked at as being
Oh,
cool,
God.
innit? Like, yeah, you got.
I've got my big boy pants on.
Yeah,
You don't have big boy pants.
Yeah.
You don't actually have them.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
But yeah, I get it. Men and women are treated different in certain circumstances, but in this particular one, it should have been treated differently. I'm sorry, it shouldn't have.
yeah, it should be the
It
same.
should have been reported at least,
Mm.
and whatever
Came
the
of it,
police
yeah.
decided to do with the case, particularly because they probably are still together, aren't they? Whatever they decided to do is whatever they decided to do. But obviously, because of what's happened, definitely social services referral has been done. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess so.
But for me, it just doesn't sit right.
Yeah, I just think it's a shame that we even have to be having these kind of conversations, especially when it comes to young people. Like, why? How have they? I know that this is not a new thing, and people have been having sex early from ever since, like, time began and stuff. But I just feel like kids just need to be kids, man, and enjoy their childhood.
Yeah.
Why is people worrying about 15 about having sex, or like, what do you think is a contributor to that? Do you think it's like social media and
Peer
know
pressure,
peer
social
pressure?
media.
I don't know, because when I was growing up, I didn't really feel like that kind of pressure to do certain things at a young age at all.
I think for me, it was widely discussed. You hear the odd person got pregnant, had an abortion. How did you get an abortion without being detected? I don't know, but it's happened. We know. Then you've got, okay, the curiosity kills the cat. Okay, people are talking about it. There's a little hype about it, but is it actually true? There are some children, okay, I'm going to do it and see for myself. And then you get the, oh, it's not all that. I rushed into it. What happens now? Like, do you get all these questions that are unanswered? But had you spoken to someone before you did the action, you would have got the answers to your questions without having to do the act. Do you get what I mean? But it is the blind leading the blind.
100%.
Yeah.
But young boys, I find, I don't know, maybe it's just the ones I've come into contact with, but they just seem like overly obsessed with having sex.
Oh yeah.
At like 14, 15 years old, like
Yeah.
proper on it. And then you hear them talking about how many girls they have sex with in one day. And I'm just like, something needs to give here, because this ain't right.
Yeah, 'cause in
But
10
you know
years,
what?
20
But
years time,
adults-
you're gonna be like,
But adults, I've known I remember this. Oh, this is a couple of years ago. A group of guys, and I was actually seeing one of them. They're sitting there talking, having these teenage-like conversations about, we used to have girls come round like clockwork. Sorry? Clockwork. STIs are real, right? STDs are real. HIVs are there. Like, oh, but we're just doing our thing. Yeah, red flag.
Yeah, that's definitely
Red
a red flag. 100%.
Because what teenagers are not aware of is that, okay, you're doing the act, but there's implications.
And they all only think about pregnancy. They don't think about all the diseases and stuff, the herpes that you can never get rid of.
HIV,
chlamydia.
and like HIV is at the top of the pyramid, and then you go down in terms of, okay, these are the ones you can get rid of, these are the ones you can't get rid of, and stuff like that. They don't understand that. Oh, well, I'll go clinic and they'll sort it out. They can't sort out everything.
That's what I'm saying. So as well as speaking about consent, we need to be speaking to young people about sex, period, and about the implications of doing what you're doing. Multiple partners, unprotected. Like, it's not wise, and they've got so much life to live as well.
And some of them are like all talking about that threesome.
Yeah,
like,
but I feel as well maybe that is the internet giving them
it
a false
is the
narrative.
Internet. It is the internet.
Giving them a false narrative of what sex and relationships are about.
And not mention, like, to even go streamline it, pornography.
Yeah.
They don't understand that it's not real.
It's not real.
They don't understand. You find when you get to an adult, and even some adults still don't understand it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's staged. Some parts are edited.
Yeah.
Like, it's not real.
It's not
so
right.
you're trying to reenact something that isn't real, comes with risks and implications.
Yeah.
Why would you? Why?
Put yourself in that situation, innit?
I know, I get it. Curiosity killed the cat. I get it, but sometimes things are just left to be alone. And I think as parents or as adults, we have to drill it into their heads that pornography is not real.
But it's like, when do you even start that conversation now? Because that's a whole new thing.
Oh yeah.
You got to talk about consent. You got to talk about sex. You got to talk about relationships. You got to talk about the implications of that. Then you need to talk about sexuality. Like, there's so many different elements to talk to.
I know, parents got
this
list.
one child has got to take in all of that information. It's too much stuff. It's too much for their young minds. That's why I'm not really into, like, teaching children under the age of 16. I know I'm probably like old school, but about certain things, because they've got other things that they need to be thinking about, like education and, simple things like how to be clean, hygiene. If you can't keep clean, you've got no business having sex.
100%.
If
But
you can't
it's
tidy
true.
up your room and all of that, you've got no business doing big people things.
I think, you know what it is? And maybe this is something for parents to think about. Depends on your child, but you have to have it in the mindset. If you don't tell your child, the playground will.
The playground will, I like
The
that
playground will.
Yeah.
Like, period. So
Yeah.
if there's something that you want to tell your child or to teach your child or to make them understand or give them a basic awareness, you got to think of when to put that in before the playground does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're not going to hear things in the playground, but just have that open communication that they can come home and ask questions. You think, okay, you picked that up at school today. We got to nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
So they may come home and ask, oh, what is porn? Huh? Where'd you get that from?
Draw for the Ray and nephews, boy.
Dinner at 7,
And I don't
conversation
even
at 8. I need to take a shot before this one, but you get what I mean?
Trust me.
But at least they came home and asked. Some kids
Yeah.
won't. They'll go on the internet and
And research it.
Yeah.
And that's where the damage is. Like,
yeah.
you didn't ask anything. You just went straight into research, and obviously you got the computer in your hand. And I don't know what you came across.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. And some things are just not accurate as well. People just write their own things and put it on the internet. Do you know what I mean?
They're trying to make some money.
Diagnose you with all sorts of shit that
Yeah.
ain't even a real thing. So yeah, that's why I said it's about being open as parents and aunties and uncles and cousins to the younger generation, like in your family. Just make your doors open, man. Anything that they want to, even though it's hard for like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old to ask you certain things, but you know what? It's better they ask you than they ask a stranger and get it wrong.
Yeah.
Or go out there and think that they're big enough to go and do
And just
certain
actually
things,
do it.
and then they come home with a belly. Because that's every parent's
Or STI.
worst, innit? Worst nightmare.
Something that can't be cured.
Yeah.
And sometimes, okay, you get an STI that can be cured, but it's a trauma around that.
Yeah.
Did you have to be examined?
Mm-hmm.
Were people asking a lot of questions? You felt that you weren't comfortable to answer? There's like a long list
There's
of
a lot
things.
of things.
Oh, you went by yourself? How did you feel? Like, there's a long list of things.
And people don't take that into account.
You're
They
a child.
just think about the basic thing, like they don't really think about the bigger picture.
No.
And I reckon that the more we can do as adults to support young people in their journey of life, the better.
I mean, just go back to emotional intelligence. It's like if you ain't developed it and you haven't got it, and some adults haven't got it.
Yeah.
So
Because
you
even
haven't got it
adults
as an
need
adult,
need teaching as well.
You can't teach a child.
That's
it's
it.
just a repeat
Cycle.
Like a cycle.
of a generation. So if an adult is emotionally damaged, then the likelihood is that child's going to be emotionally damaged as well. So it is breaking that cycle. It's like removing that stigma of it's embarrassing to go and see someone for help. It's embarrassing to go and seek for help or seek for support. And looking at it as like, do you know what? Let me be the one to break this curse, kind of thing.
Yeah, I hear that 100%.
So what's your
But, yeah.
advice to parents?
Parents, yeah, you gotta just do the best you can do. My thing is this, yeah. You can equip your children with all the tools and the knowledge that you have, and if you don't have it, go and seek it professionally, so that your child is well equipped. Because the world out there is not very nice, and you just have to keep it 100 with them. It's not very nice, and there's so many deep, dark secrets out there. But if you do what you can do, then you've done your best. What they do after they leave the front door, it's not on you, man. So you just have to make sure that you do what you can. And that's about it, to be fair. But we've come to the end of the episode. But thanks for coming to join us today on the Exchange podcast. And we will see you again next week. Bye.